Hi, John with eTrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Air Lift LoadLifter 5000 series on our 2022 Dodge Ram 2500. So before we get our airbags installed, we'd like to do some real-world testing, something that you might actually run into in the real world. So we have our 30-foot camper here. It's coming in at about 6,600 pounds, and we have it hooked up to our bumper hitch just to get maximum weight on the rear end. We did notice that on our 22 Ram here, it lowered it about an inch, which doesn't seem like much, and it's really not. This truck can handle a whole lot more. This is a fairly mid to lightweight trailer, but even 1 inch on the back here is going to affect your handling. It's going to affect tire wear. It's going to affect your headlight aim. That's something that these bags are going to alleviate. You're able to pump it up. They're adjustable, so if you have a lighter trailer like this and you also have a heavier trailer, you can adjust the air pressure in the bags to give you a nice, smooth, level ride. So with the trailer hooked up, we're going to take this over our test course just to see how the factory suspension is going to handle our 30-foot camper. And our test course is basically staggered speed bumps, but this is going to get a good feel on whether or not the truck has any major issues as far as sway or bouncing. Honestly, as we go over this, we're getting movement out of the trailer. If this was a heavier trailer, we would definitely feel more of a jouncing action, up and down movement. So with that testing done, let's go ahead and unhook. We'll take this truck into our bay and install the springs. We'll take it for another test run. So with the airbags installed, we're going to head back out to the test track and see if we can tell a difference here in the handling. And the fact of the matter is, it's not too much of a difference. Today's trucks do a really good job at handling these lighter campers. You're definitely going to tell a difference if you have a fifth wheel or you're towing a heavy haul. But where it counts is we're back up to a level ride height. Remember, we sank 1 inch with the camper on there, and that means that our headlights are going to be hitting the sky. If you try to hit your high beams, they go even higher. So really, in this instance, it's more about the level ride, the headlights being aimed where they're supposed to be, and your tire wear. So this is what your air springs look like once they're mounted up. All we did was remove the factory bump stops, and these actually go back into place. Now, these springs have an internal bump stop already, so you can run these with lower air pressure. They are similar to over-the-road truck heavy-duty suspension components. This is rubber. You've got these roll caps on either side, so as this spring compresses, it rolls out onto this plate, top and bottom. This is going to increase your stability. It will not increase the capacity that your truck can haul. It's best to think of these as a leveling kit. So if you do haul something heavy in the bed, or if you have a heavy camper, these can be inflated independently to bring your ride back level so that your headlights are shining where they're supposed to be, so that you have the right amount of weight distribution on your frame. So the nice thing about these airbags as well is if you have a couple of different trailers that weigh different amounts, if you have a bass boat and then you also have an RV, you can adjust the pressures independently, left and right. And if for the heavier equipment, you can fill it up to 100 psi if needed to get you level, or it can run as low as 5 psi. The mounting points for these Schrader valves are also customizable as well. You can put these in any configuration. Sometimes we can put them over here. Some people like it under the fuel filler cap. Okay, so the first step is we have the truck in the bay now, and well, we have it up on a lift just to make it easier for you to see what we're going to do here. But the first step is you're going to want to remove the spare tire. You can check your owner's manual on how to do that. Next step, just to give us some more working room under here, we're going to take the heat shield off. It's going to be 10 millimeter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 up on the top side. So once you have the heat shield and the spare tire down, the next step, especially if you're doing this on your driveway, is going to be to raise the truck up. And the best way to do this is to jack it right here by the axle. You're going to raise this up in the air. You're going to take a couple of jack stands. You can do it back here if they're big enough. Otherwise, you can come up under and you'll just support it by the frame rails on left and the right side, and then lower the axle back down. What we want to do is we want to take the weight off of the springs here to allow us room to work. So once we have the axle relaxed, then we can take the two 16mm bolts that are holding our bump stop here. We'll take that off. And we will not be reusing this. So the next step is going to be building the spring assembly. Now when we get these, you're going to see a side with a label and 2 holes, a side with no label and 3 holes. So the top side is going to be, you can either read it, it says Air Lift and the number, or just know that the top side is going to have the 2 mounting holes and the air hole. So we're going to attach the air fitting right now. And this is designed to swivel, so they say to put this on finger tight and then 1.5 turns. So when you're grabbing it, don't just grab up here because it'll spin. Grab the nut and just spin that with your fingers until you can't anymore. Then you can take your 1/2-inch wrench and we're going to go 1.5 turns. So this is going to be 1.5. So with the air fitting facing you, you're going to put the upper roll plate on, and then you have 2 top plates. One is for the truck, the frame, the other is for the top of the spring itself. The larger hole goes with the truck. So we'll set that off. We will use that in a minute. And we're looking for this plate here with the orientation of the square hole away from me. This is going to go on like this. And this gets tightened down with 3/4-inch button head screws. This is a 7/16 Allen wrench. And these get torqued down. So as we're going to tighten the top plate down, before it gets too snug, you want to insert one of the carriage bolts up underneath. And go ahead and tighten the top plate down. It'll be in this orientation. This one we can get to later. Now we'll just go ahead and torque this down to the specifications outlined in your installation manual. So once the large washer is tightened down, we're going to take these 2 long carriage bolts and slide them up through the bottom. And then it'll be placed onto the airbag. And you'll notice the indentations here. These are going to accept the flat 3/4-inch screws. We'll just go ahead and tighten down the assembly here. Now we'll just go ahead and torque this down to the specifications outlined in your installation manual. Next, we're going to install the upper frame bracket. Now this is going to go where your old jounce bumper went. And on these brackets here, they are stamped up on top with a number that you can check with the instruction manual to identify which bracket goes where. So this is going to go with the large hole facing the outside of the truck. And you're going to use your remaining 2 button head screws. Now these wouldn't be the same size as the other. These are 6mm. I'm going to put 1 screw through the oval hole here. And the other will go in the small hole here. And we'll snug these up. So we've got them snugged up, and these are just going to get torqued. And while we're under here, we're going to need to relocate this hose in front of me. This is your axle vent tube. We just need to get it out of the way, so we're going to end up popping this off. It just has a body clip on it, a plastic clip. And we're going to hang this out of the way for right now with a zip tie. The next step after we have it assembled is to mount the airbag onto the truck. Now, this side, on the driver's side, is fairly easy, but on the passenger side, it's going to be a little bit tighter tolerances. So I actually built this. This is just a section of tubing, and I have a screw blocking one side. And I'm going to compress this spring down to give us more room, get the air out, and just slip that in to the quick fitting. And that gives us a lot more room to put our spring onto the truck. You're going to want the air side out, and these long carriage bolts go over the axle. Once it's in position, just pull back on the collar, pull the hose out, and it'll rise back up. So before we lower the axle, I like to make sure that everything's going to be oriented and nothing gets crushed. So we can install a flat washer on top of the bolt and just start this nylock nut just to kind of keep things in place. There'll be one for this corner and one on the other corner. So now it's time to lower the axle, and we have these bolts on the other corners and everything is kind of secure. So we're going to lower the axle, and we want to make sure that everything, these two plates meet completely and everything stays on the bottom and nothing gets pinched. So we'll start lowering right now. And you'll see the axle come up. That's a good idea. Just to make sure everything stays lined up. And it is. At this point, we can lower it completely. Next step, we're going to install the lower clamp bar on the axle. It's going to have some notches in it. Those are going to ride on your axle tube. So just feed these through. And the remaining washer and nylock nut. So we'll take the bracket, set it on the frame. I kind of hold down on the bolt. We're going to run these up. We'll just go a little bit at a time. What you're going to be watching for is you want this to be level, and then you want these rods coming down. You don't want them kicked over to one side or the other. You want them fairly straight. So instead of buying special tools to torque this down like a crow's foot, I just went ahead and took a hacksaw and we cut these bolts off. They were plenty long enough, and now these get tightened down evenly. Next step, we're going to come up to the top side and we're going to tighten the two carriage bolts on the top brackets here. Now you want to be careful not to use your ratchet end on your wrench if you have those, because once the bolt goes up, you're not going to be able to really get it out. At least on this truck. It's something to be aware of if you're going to install these on your truck. So we're just going to have to go old school on this. Once these get snugged up, go ahead and tighten them down to the specs in your installation manual. So your line's going to come coiled. Just grab the two Schrader valve ends on one hand. Go ahead and find the center. We're going to go ahead and snip that. I'm going to use a razor knife or a tubing cutter. Now these ends are going to go towards the airbags themselves. The Schrader valve ends are going to come to the back of the truck. Now there's a few different mounting locations you can use. Over the years we've done the fuel filler door, we've done just a spot on the back bumper here. Today we're going to be removing the license plate, and we're going to have our Schrader valves actually hold our license plate on for us. They are threaded and they'll be coming out here and here. So you'll take your cut end of your tubing, and this simply pushes in to this quick connect fitting here on your bag. Make sure it pushes all the way in. Remember, it swivels. The next step is just to route your hose somewhere along your frame to get to the back bumper where we're going. So we routed these lines up through the frame. I've got a piece of 1/2-inch rubber tubing there with some RTV on the inside just to secure it. I ran it inside the frame and we came out back here and this is secured too. The secret of this tubing is to minimize movement and chafing. This is how air leaks start. So any chance you get to stiffen up this tubing with zip ties and anything else you can do, go for it. You don't have to run it this way. You can run it on the outside of the frame, on the inside of the frame if you like. We just chose to go this way. We did not cut the extra line. We coiled it here with this wiring harness, just in case in the future if we do develop air leaks or if we decide to move it somewhere else, they'll be here. But it's secured here, and we ran it out and through the license plate frame, and the Schrader valve on the other side is actually holding our license plate. And this will be oriented left for the left, and we'll do the right for the right side. Next step, we're going to fill the airbags up just to test for leaks. I like to go about 20 psi or so. So with 20 pounds of pressure in the bags, we're just going to come back and spray our fittings. We're going to be looking for air bubbles. We're looking for large bubbles. We can spray here, and we can spray at the Schrader valve end at the back of the truck. So we're looking good here. If you have big bubbles coming out of the bag end where you cut your line, just go ahead, pop the line out with that quick connect, recut it, and insert it back in. And that's it as far as the installation goes. Your last steps would be to replace your heat shield back up here and mount your spare tire back under the truck. And that's it for our look at the Air Lift LoadLifter 5000 series on our 2022 Dodge Ram 2500.